Hi, everybody. I love that voice. Recording in progress. I got my on-air button there, and I got to tell everybody right off the bat, this is an amazing channel because I bring in amazing people to this channel, including this is going to be one hell of an interview. I very rarely use the word hell, but it will be one hell of an interview with Fish Nealman, aka Neil Fishman. We'll talk about that. But please do subscribe because that's how this channel grows, and it's growing. So this is we've been we've been Fish and I have been chatting last week, and we actually met. You talk about synchronicities of the universe and stuff. We actually met. I think it was on Second Avenue in front of a restaurant. I forget the name. It's not important,
Myths.
but both yes. So both Neil and I were recipients of New York Book Festival awards, and they called us in to be present at this award ceremony in the basement of this lovely restaurant, The Smith. I hadn't met him inside, but outside waiting for an Uber. I take one Uber a year, and we're waiting, and there was Neil and Fish, and there was I, and we chatted, and of course now we got reconnected, and we're both part of Kay Wagner's Bold Authors Network. That's a whole nother show in itself. Anyway, I don't know how we can keep this under 3 hours, but we'll endeavor. And therefore, Neil has to come back. But there's so much stuff to talk about, notwithstanding Born Posthumous, an AI novel by Fish Nealman, which absolutely titillates and intrigues because AI is the whole world, and we're going to jump into Neil's journey, Neil's life. He worked in. I'm I'm stopping myself. You know what? It's the exuberance in me for doing this that comes out. So, you know what? Why don't you do a little bit of an intro, and then we're going to just jump into this very important stuff. As you being an award-winning writer, your experience in AI, technology, the whole thing. We got a lot of stuff to talk about. Take it away, Fish.
Well, I gotta say, I guess kicking off, thank you so much for having me on the show. Long time listener, first time caller. Wonderful to be here. And I think certainly from the brother to brother, Emano, that the first thing I have to do is put on a cap,
Ah,
right?
now we're really bonded.
Now,
Okay, fishtail.
fishtail.
Uh-huh. Right.
So now we're getting into the groove. So, um, Fish Nealman. Absolute pleasure to be speaking with you. As you said, we did have the privilege of meeting in the flesh, not virtual, which is very strange these days.
Yeah, you're right. You're right.
So we got to you were waiting outside. I'd heard you speak at the Book Award Festival and thought, wow, this guy is interesting. This guy is somebody to talk. I saw you after the show, waiting, as you said. I think we were on Third Avenue, actually, not Second Avenue. You were waiting for your car. I thought, you know, put the shyness to one side, go introduce yourself, say hi, and lo and behold, one thing leads to another, and it's just absolutely one of life's pleasures to be able to be sitting here this evening, being able to have a chat with you. And I've written a number of books under my pen name, Fish Nealman, which I decided to use because I have written a number of non-fiction works, and under my legal name as such, Neil Fishman. And I just wanted to keep my two genres different so that people wouldn't confuse one book with another. I mean, if I might,
Yes, please.
very quickly. So, one of the last non-fiction books that I wrote was this thing here, Ecosystems Architecture, New Thinking for Practitioners in the Age of AI or Artificial Intelligence.
Okay.
So one of the things I tend to do um, is write metaphors, analogy, and so on. But in reading here, uh, just saying one thing, in that way, graph nodes can be arbitrarily listed as being a type of component, chicken or waffle or whatever, verbatim from here. So in my technical stuff about AI, I'm talking about chickens and waffles and
Mm.
graphs. In Born Posthumous, I say we then build a Bill Tutt. Now he's a really interesting character. Bill Tutt was part of the work the British did at Bletchley Park during World War II to break
So,
Hitler's codes, the Enigma file. So we then build a Bill Tutt inspired knowledge graph of word sentences, pronunciation, emphasis, sound stresses, and so on. So, if you will, there can be occasionally some similarity in topic between the make-believe stuff and the non-make-believe stuff. And so I felt use a different name so that we keep the play stuff different from the serious stuff. So anyway, that's why the pen name. And how I got into then even writing fiction, primarily the major vehicle for me to get into fiction lies completely with my wife. But one of the things that made the transition, I won't say easy, but led me to that. In writing about complex technical issues, things that potentially are obscure, it helps to use writing techniques that deal with analogy, metaphor, in other words, stories. And so even in my technical stuff, when I was dealing with some really complex, convoluted topics, I would try and use a story to try to explain where I was coming from. And so I was used to writing stories. And so I just had to put a slight twist on how I approach storytelling to be able to get into the fiction stuff.
okay. Okay. Interesting. The two names. And it's funny, as we've been discovering some similarities in our journeys. Uh, I wrote uh, I wrote my tortoise book, which I'll show. I might as well. I wrote there's a tortoise in my hair, and then having met Kay Wagner from Bold Authors Network, she then got me into writing nonfiction, like you. And I wrote 10 Things I Learned from the Billionaire, which is coming out a week from Friday. No, actually, it's coming out Friday. This Friday.
Congratulations.
So,
That's fantastic.
and listening to you, there's plausibility and there's reason for using two names. Except in my octogenarian journey, I never thought about a pen name for myself. Although I do call myself Earthhood. The
Well,
name,
I told my wife that I was going to be on a podcast with you, and she says, "Wow, I just love Calvin Klein." I said, "No, it's not that Calvin," but
but close. But by the way, here's the similarity. Calvin Klein's partner was a guy named Barry Schwartz, the guy who financed Calvin Klein was Barry Schwartz. Now my name is Calvin Barry Schwartz.
right.
So there's great. I never got a chance to tell Calvin Klein that. Maybe he would have gotten a kick out of that.
Yeah,
Actually, but I
my,
never
my
were.
my wife used to hang out with his daughter Marcy, so they
Oh,
were used to be
wow.
buddies. Yeah.
Wow. Impressive. Wow. So I'm Calvin, but whatever. So, um, Born Posthumous is, as I'm looking at it. It's a fascinating title. What does what does posthumous mean in the context of being alive?
It means being dead.
Hey,
In a, you know, there are things. Um, so, for example, Nobel Prizes are not issued posthumously.
oh,
So, like when Crick and Watson got their Nobel Prize for DNA stuff, it didn't include the woman involved because she had already passed. So posthumous would be a post-death type of thing. It's after your life. In terms of born posthumous, the traditional definition of born posthumous is that you are born, you come into this world after one or both of your parents are deceased. Traditionally, it's more commonly that you've been born after your father passed away, or certainly if a woman died during childbirth, you would be born posthumous, that after one of your parents died. In the world we are entering now with artificial intelligence, robots, AI, in this case with this book, born posthumous is being born after the self has died. So this is now the AI being reincarnated, immortalized of the human. In the story, the human has passed. The AI is trained on the body of knowledge that the human has left, has all of the traits, the consciousness, the identity of the human. And so therefore, within born posthumous is the self reincarnated as an alternative. Now, one of the things that I do explore in the book is what are we as humans that make us humans per se, as opposed to distinct to a machine. One of the things that we could start to look at is, as individual self, we have our biology, we have our cells, right? So we've got our digestive systems, our respiratory system, nervous system, all these systems we have, but one of the things that they all have in common is that they are all made of molecules, and molecules end up being made of cells, right? And you got atoms in the cells. Within the body, like blood cells may last maybe 4 months. There isn't no cell that you've got in your body that you were born with. So if you want to, today, you are not what you were born. There is no part of you, realistically, that is alive today that was alive when you were born. So you are not what you are born, so you are not what you are born, so you are different.
Wow.
So if you can be different, just to keep that in mind. So now, then, what are you with what you are today? If, God forbid, you were to lose a nail, some hair, are you still you? Absolutely. If, God forbid, you lost a finger, are you still you? Yes. A hand? Yes. An arm? Yes. A leg? Yes. If I had a kidney, I needed a transplant, am I still me? Yes. I got somebody else's kidney, but all right, heart, lung transplant. Am I still me? Yes. What about some corneas and eyes and stuff? Yes, I'm still me. So then how much of you can actually disappear and you think you are still you? Now, if the way you think, what you know about, the way you learn, your experiences, if that can be part of a machine, if a machine has everything you think about, the way you think, what you want to participate in, what you enjoy, what you dislike, if the machine is sophisticated that it can have reasoning, some semblance of consciousness. Consciousness isn't a thing in the body. It is an amalgamation of the way certain aspects of the brain come together, that it materializes. So there isn't such a thing as consciousness in a physical tangible item. It is the result of something, and we can certainly look to get into some of that aspect. But if a computer doesn't need per se consciousness as a single thing, but is derived from knowledge, experiences, and so on, and has this, could it be you? So the idea within Born Posthumous is, if you can't define what you are, and let's take, a godly statement, I am that I am, or a Descartes statement, I think, therefore I am. Ask a computer, do you think? Yeah. All right, therefore you are, right? I am, I think, therefore I am. It becomes really, really difficult to delineate between what is identity, what is conscious, what is a thing. You would need to get super, super, super semantic, right? And even then, you probably may not get complete buy-in from everybody. But so within Born Posthumous, it is then a person that is the deceased, but now living as an AI. They are born posthumous. They are born of the self. After the death of the self, they are the new self. They will continue thinking like the person, evolving like the person, doing the same type of work as the person. In the case of Born Posthumous, the protagonist is a musician, creates music, plays music, performs concerts. In the book, Posthumous is able to write new music. He's able to play music, is able to perform in a concert. If you can't delineate, if you can't truly identify what it is to be a person, in other words, how much of the human can I give up and still be me? And recognizing that what I am today is not what I was born, so that I can't say I have always been, because I am not what I was. So therefore, the AI is not what you were. Absolutely true. But then you aren't what you were born. So it's part of the evolutionary thing. But if it thinks and plays and trains on what you are and has your morals, has your ethics, and all these things, could it be argued that it is you? And so in Born Posthumous, it is immortalizing, which for a lot of people will be a wonderful thing because they want to be immortalized, a permanent legacy. And that is Born Posthumous, is the carrying on in somebody else. And then within that spawns a lot of the questions about, from a societal standpoint, is it you?
Okay.
What does that mean from a moral standpoint? What does that mean from an ethical standpoint? What does that mean from a legal standpoint? Because ethics and morals have nothing to do with legality. Because what is legal doesn't have to be moral, and what is moral doesn't have to be legal. And so you take the moral, legal, ethics, and put all of these together, and the book poses a question,
Hmm.
essentially, upon the evidence presented. What do you think?
Okay. Now, listening to this, I did not expect to go off topic as quickly as I am. So watch this, Fish. Watch this. 15 years ago, I was very interested in singularity. And I think the question I'm going to ask you is relevant to what you just described. I was a big fan of singularity. I got a kick out of Ray Kurzweil, uh, primarily because he took 160 supplements a day. I took 50. And I actually got it. So he had a conference in New York. He has every 2 years, he had these singularity conferences. And 17 years ago, well, 15 years ago, when I got into journalism, it was in Harvard. I couldn't afford to go. And then I became a journalist. And so so I went to New York for 3 days. One of the speakers, and this was a Russian, he had about 30 or 40 speakers, including Ken Jennings, the guy from Jeopardy who, took on IBM's Watson. But one of the speakers was from Russia, and he was doing research on transferring this with like a USB switch into a cyborg, an Arnold Schwarzenegger Terminator cyborg. He found he's still researching how to take this, put it into a cyborg, therefore giving me immortality. And of course, the question, which is almost like a posthumous thing, is it me? Or is it Memorex, that old commercial? And it's related to what you were just talking about. So is it me? They take a USB thing, put it into a cyborg. This is me, and all the things you described, the cornea and the knees and all these body parts, they're just body parts. But this is the essence. So the question, is it me?
And realistically, why not?
Okay.
If so, like one of the things that I position within the book is the human, one of the twists is the human protagonist is anti-AI, especially when it comes to collaborating with work, right? It doesn't want to use AI in its work at all. It wants all its work to come from the human self, to be created by the human, by the self, to be limited by the self. From a moral standpoint, this is the instrument for creation. The instrument for creation does not go outside, especially in an artificial way. Because the AI is trained on the human, the AI won't use any other AI engines to help create. Now, you take like a ChatGPT, the way in ChatGPT 5 that recently came out, that's structured, is that's an LLM that starts to leverage other LLMs. There are other large language models out there. They will also use other potentially small language models to interact with, or specialized versions, domain specific, that they will, especially when you get into agentic workflow. What an agentic workflow might do is have an AI, and when it's doing workflow, say, oh, I need this, so I'm going to call this LLM to do this part of the work. Then when I'm done with that, I'm going to call this other LLM to do this other part. And so you have a network of AIs all coming together to solve a problem. Within the book, because the AI is trained on the human, and the human says, no, this is the sole entity that is going to be responsible for creating, the AI version says, no, I can only use my single AI engine for creating, and will not partner or collaborate with any other AI engines in the creating of new work. And so the AI adopts that moral position of the human in how it then creates new work.
Okay. 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 To wind down this little segment, what do you hope readers will feel or question after reading Born Posthumous?
I hope in part that they enjoy the story. I hope the story lingers with them. I hope it makes them question. And I hope it creates a rallying cry within society so that society becomes better prepared for this new world. I don't think it's not a matter of saying, hey, you know, AI is, problematic, therefore we need to close it down and can't use it at all. It's not about that. But it is certainly a thing that if AI is going to be disruptive, even in a good disruption, what that disruption looks like at a society standpoint. Let's take, for example, it is said that don't worry about AI. We're just going to give a lot of the mundane tasks to AI, the things that people don't want to do. We'll give a bunch of entry-level work for AI to do. Don't worry about it. Well, it turns out when you graduate college, university, you typically start with the entry-level position and then grow. Well, if there aren't any of those entry-level jobs left, maybe what we should be looking at is, what does curriculum look like in the world of AI? Because now we don't want to graduate students for an entry-level position. We want to graduate students for an experienced level position. So how within the curriculum, how within the construct of a 4-year degree, how do we within the construct of a master's or a PhD and get that hands-on commercial experience to these students so that, yes, they're not vying for that entry-level position that doesn't exist anymore. They are vying for this experience, and they are equipped to get an experienced position because the education system has prepared them.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure yet the education system is recognizing that this evolution needs to take place, that the curriculum needs to shift, The professors, the teachers, the assistant professors need to be retrained to be able to educate the students that are coming out so that they are prepared for the new world. It's not about dampening down AI, but it's how to make sure society is equipped,
Yeah.
capable of extenuating that capability, and that people are given meaningful lives, meaningful careers. You don't want to go into a career that says, well, the best I can expect is to spend 5 years in this job, knowing AI is going to take over, and then I've got to find myself to be reskilled to go laterally or potentially downwards into some other thing that I wasn't aware of, that I can do that. And maybe, hopefully, I can protect myself for 5 years before AI takes that over. You want to be outside of that. You want to have this coexistence, but you want to be in an upward trajectory. You want that old metaphor of climbing the corporate ladder upwards, not sliding down a corporate ladder or going horizontally and shifting, right? You want meaningful careers. You don't want to just say, unless you want, I need to get a different field. I want to experience something different. If you want to, because that's your passion to do something else, society to allow you to do that. But if you want to continually grow, if you want to partner alongside how technology is moving along, how can I continue to do that, be productive, and be fulfilled as a human in the society? And I don't think at the education level and then the broader government that we are doing the necessary steps to be proactive, which then, if we're not proactive, you become reactive. And when you're reactive, you do not make good decisions because you're making it for right this second to pacify something immediately, and then you've got to redo it all over again the next thing. So I hope the person who reads it is not that, oh no, the future of the world looks dismal, but it's how how can I participate as a rallying call so society starts preparing itself proactively for a new environment and not reactively, because it's going to hurt more people to be reactionary to this than if you can plan for it.
Okay. Okay. I want to say I was a happy guy about an hour and a half ago. I'm teasing. I'm teasing. I'm a happy guy. Um, where do you believe AI, because you do come from a world of data culture, where do you believe AI and data ethics are headed in the next 5 years? I can't even imagine. Um,
It's going to be interesting. Like, let me hang on. I have a sheet of paper here, so I'm just
okay.
gonna tear a strip. So I'm just tearing a strip of
You're
paper.
not doing a magic trick on me now, are you? No, this
No,
is not magic.
but let me just take this. If I hold it like this, I've made a circle, right? So I've
Right.
got an outside ring and an inside ring. If I twist it like this, so hang on, let me just put some tape together on this. All right. So if I've got this is called a Mobius strip. And this was formerly recognized as a thing in the mid 1800s, although during the Romans, there are mosaics with this type of pattern in here. Now, what happens on here? If in the circle, there was an outside edge on the circle and an inside edge. On here, if I take my finger and go around, what happens because of the bend? I go on the inside and then I end up on the outside. That there is no delineation between inside and outside because of this shape. Now, from an AI standpoint, this Mobius strip, this shape, becomes a basis of recursion. Now, what this means is you can write a prompt for AI that says, act as a specialist in this field and do this, 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 and create something. Recursion then lets you say, do that. But now, based on what you've generated, have it be part of the major prompt because there is no inside and outside. You can traverse it and you can keep going around and you never lose anything because what is inside is outside and what is outside is inside and things like that. In terms of how an AI will reason, being able for an AI to be recursive opens up a significantly different set of things. So within the future, the types of capability, the reasoning abilities of an AI is just really going to explode because it is not going to be bounded by traditional ways of thinking. That this recursion means it will be able to generate something before it gives you an answer, be able to further input that and rationalize over it and refine it and then refine it, and it doesn't have to have an over end to that, right? And so at some point you do want it to come out and you can look to limit it with a time or a number of recursive things. But the amount of rationalization that it will be able to do over reasoning on what it's generating and verifying and all these other things and removing the hallucinations that early versions of AI were doing with large language models, you know, we're just a couple of years into these things and these abilities. So looking 5 years out, it would be very difficult to actually predict, but it is going to be mathematically amazing what these things can do.
Off topic, because
Off topic.
you made me think off topic. All right. Uh, um, so we're gonna have do. I gotta spit this out. We could have many diseases that have been totally incurable cured. Now I have so that's question number one. And watch this one. This is a little bit of an ethical question. I've asked this before to somebody I know who's near and dear to me, who's a major cancer researcher. So, A, we're going to be at the precipice, one of my favorite words, precipice of curing a lot of this stuff. And B, do we want to cure this stuff? That's question B. You like that question?
Well, even from a cancer standpoint, one of the things that um, was recently discovered within a general concept side of things was that there were cancer cells that were hot and cancer cells that were cold. And then how cancer spreads versus whether they are regarded as hot or cold is identifying these particular cells and then looking at using AI to try to find ways to switch them from being hot to being cold so that they stop the malignancy of spreading. So I mean, there, as a tool, it will be phenomenal on some of the things that it will be ideas it will be able to explore and examine. Absolutely.
Okay.
And within Born Posthumous, uh, one of the avenues on that from a medical standpoint that I explore is that my protagonist has a child that is born with cerebral palsy, and that the use of AI within the story is able to not cure it, but make it such that the child can then function appropriately in society.
Wow. Wow. Um, uh, it's interesting. When I went to this conference, Singularity, there was another speaker talking, and again, this was so long ago. The AI was not even. It was not even. It was not. It was nothing. I mean, it was, but it wasn't. Uh, but actually, it was Michio Kaku. I don't know if you know who he is. He wrote the book Physics of the Future, and I had gone to a lecture with my son Neil, uh, and he took an account of AI down the road, not that many years, and here's the scenario related to what you just said. I'm shaving in the future, a few years from now. I'm shaving, and on the other side of the mirror is some kind of like wallpaper with little things built in. And while I'm shaving, it looks into me, my body, and it finds one cancer cell. and the alarm goes off, and then I go with the report, and they inject me with something that goes seeks out and finds that one cancer cell and kills it. Boom. This is coming. Anyway, anyway, uh, I want to go completely before we continue this discussion. I want to go a little off topic, and these are some of my fun questions that I borrowed from one of my favorite journalists. I don't mind borrowing things. So here goes. You don't necessarily have to answer it, but somehow I think you'd like it. Here's the scenario. Excluding family or friends, somebody living or dead you'd like to spend a day with.
Um,
There could be a couple answers. There's no rules here.
I think there might be a couple of people
Okay.
in trying to think about it. I think just for the individual's breadth of intellectual knowledge would be Bertrand Russell.
I like that.
I think for this individual, the way his mind worked around experimentation of ideas, I would potentially include Man Ray as like a real wild card type of idea. So I've got like Bertrand Russell at an intellectual level, Man Ray because of the experimental type of thought and like real chaotic out of the box type of thinking. I think just maybe to kind of round it off, there was a rabbi from like the 13th, 14th century, Isaac Luria, they called him the Ari. That he was his visionary things around mysticism and so on, that potentially him. So I think Bertrand Russell, Man Ray, and the Ari would be like in looking at a multitude of topics, like delving into having even a brief conversation with those would be mind blowing.
Okay, I like that. And different. I haven't heard that before, and I've done 400 of these interviews, and so you're in a class by yourself. So there. Um, One other off-topic question, because I'm a Hollywood kind of guy. Do you have any favorite movies?
I really liked Anthony Hopkins movie Magic from like the
I
early
remember that.
70s.
I
That
remember that.
was I really liked that one. So um I thought that was good. But movies I enjoy for the fantasy, the release of something, the entertainment side of
Okay.
things that
Okay. And before we went on air, I gave you a movie to watch, which you should. Soylent Green, not a happy movie, but whatever, dystopian. So, okay, back to business. Uh, you've worked with major, we're kind of switching some of the focus here. You've worked with major global institutions. What project or failure, coming out of all that, what taught you the most out of that environment?
I, I'll answer what taught me the most um, separately, but I think hands down, the most fun I ever had um, was some work I did with NASA. That for them, I got to do their initial work on sending an astronaut to Mars.
Wow.
And, in like a lot of what IT people would get to work on, a lot of times things start out saying, what do you want? And then you find out from somebody, what do they want? Or what do you need? And then you go design something, build something, construct something for them based on that. And the absolute most wonderful, wonderful thing about doing stuff, working on sending an astronaut to Mars is, what do you want? Well, we don't know. We've never been to deep space before. We don't know what we need. And so now it's, which was I loved, is here's a solution that will work with, it doesn't know what the question is. Now, this thing gets into the one thing that I uncovered and then learned, and there's certainly a gentleman called John Zachman that I owe an incredible debt to. But I'm just pulling something up on my phone because I always keep it handy. There's a poem by Rudyard Kipling. He's the guy that wrote the Jungle Book, the Disney movie.
Gunga
Right?
Din.
Yeah. So he wrote a poem called The Elephant's Child, and particularly this one little poem within that. So it's for children. And it goes like this. I'm going to read it. I keep 6 honest serving men. They taught me all I knew. Their names were what and why and when and how and where and who. I send them over land and sea. I send them east and west. But after they have worked for me, I give them all a rest. I let them rest from 9 till 5, for I am busy then, as well as breakfast, lunch, and tea, for they are hungry men. But for different folk have different views. I know a person small who keeps 10,000 serving men who get no rest at all. She sends them abroad on her own affairs. From the second she opens her eyes, 1 million hows, 2 million wheres, 7 million whys. Now, that's it. He's got 6 honest serving men. This person small has 10 million. She's asking 1 million hows, 2 million wheres, 7 million whys. The key comes in the 6 serving men, the interrogatives of the English language. What, why, when, how, where, and who. And from your journalist background, you'll be very, very familiar with that.
Correct. Correct.
If you understand the questions that form a holistic view, this is why in the poem, when he says, I let them rest from 9 to 5, the working day basically, and he lets them have time for breakfast, lunch, and dinner because they're hungry. When you know how to ask a set of questions holistically, you don't need to spend as much time as somebody that asks 7 million whys, 2 million hows, 1 million, 10 million serving men. You can be more directive, more specific, honed in, and then you can, from that information that you've got really, really quickly, you can then use your time wisely on what you're doing, what you're creating, what you're crafting, what you're building, what you're communicating, and everything like that, because you could get what you needed quickly, succinctly, holistically. And that, as a poem that was done 123 years ago now, based on this gentleman I told you, John Zachman, a complete visionary, did some work in the early 1980s, is changed my life on how I go about problem solving. And it is why I absolutely loved working at NASA on sending an astronaut to Mars, even when somebody couldn't overtly tell me what they wanted, because I could explain what I was doing around all of the things that if they come up, how I could address them.
Wow. Wow. Uh, is it, we hear that all the time, Musk and the gang and all these folks want to go to Mars. Is it off topic? I mean, is it remotely even feasible and practical and are we even going to be around by the time we do that? Will global warming finally, wash away half the planet? I mean, it just seems to
This
be.
is why, from the NASA standpoint, NASA is a very in a very good way. is a very risk-averse organization. They want to know if there is a chance that something could happen, what are they going to do about it? They do not want problems. So buying down risk for them is huge. And I applaud them for having that stance. Now, the International Space Station, that's in what they call LEO, low Earth orbit. It's although it's hundreds of miles up, it's still close enough that it's not deep space. Now, one of the things that happens in low Earth orbit on the International Space Station to every astronaut that's on there from whatever country is the eyeball starts to flatten at the back. When the eyeball flattens, your vision changes. 30 years ago, they would send people up into space with multiple pairs of glasses because they didn't know how their vision was going to change. But as it changed, then they could just try these different glasses so that they could then see. Because we're modern today, there are dialable lenses. So they can send them up with one pair of glasses, but the lenses are dialable to accommodate for the eyeball flattening and changing their vision. The Soviets were the very first people to detect this behavior with the eyeball, and this is going back to the early 70s. So for over 50 years, we have known about this phenomenon on the eyeball, and there isn't a single person on this planet that can explain why it happens. There are physiological changes that happen in low Earth orbit. They've got no idea what's going to happen in deep space. So whether it's eyeballs, organs, anything. I mean, interesting thing. Yeah. Oh, I'm not feeling well. Okay, let's diagnose this. Oh, we need to do a quick operation on you. You open somebody up in deep space, right? No gravity. You open up the body, all the interior parts are just going to want to float out. You do not want to do operations in space.
Ugh.
Even from a surgeon standpoint, you want to be like strapped down so that you're not floating up, so that you can actually do something. The environment is so hostile that, yes, there are certain things mechanically you can do to compensate for things, but we do not, as a species, understand what deep space will do to the human body because there has been no human body that's been observed in deep space. And so that is a major risk element
Mm.
that provides some people, not necessarily everybody, but some people, caution to take baby steps or to make sure that there are certain controls, certain mechanisms in place that you can react if you can anticipate to do something, because you don't want somebody to be several million miles away, have 25 minutes latency in
Mm.
communication, and then say, hey, oh, yeah, we see that. Just give us 2 weeks to figure it out. Will you hold your breath for that long?
Mm.
The dynamic is different. There will be some people that will be, even at the individual human standpoint, that says, hey, if I'm going to be in the first dozen people going, I will accept the risk. If I die, that's the risk I'm accepting. And maybe it might come to that. But as a general program, it's going to be, we want everybody to go to land safely. We want everybody that wants to come back to be able to come back safely. That is and requires people with so much more intelligence
Mm.
than I will ever have, right? So many more capabilities, people that are so deep into the math, biology, everything else. A lot of specific, specialized thinking to try to overcome and address with the issues that may come up with what happens to the human body in deep space.
Okay. Uh, a short answer for this. Anything keep you up at night intellectually?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, as we're on the space thing, so, like work with Einstein, Niels Bohr, and everything, we certainly live in a very physical world, right? The universe is a physical thing. Things act in a physical way according to laws of physics and other things. We are told by astronomers and others that the universe is expanding. If it's expanding, what is it expanding into? Does that mean there's something on the other side of the universe? That I find gives me more thought as to, what is the purpose for living is if the universe is expanding, I can get that, but it's not like expanding into heaven because heaven is more mystical type of thing, spiritual. So for the universe to expand, it's got to be it's expanding as a physical thing for something to expand physically. If you're, in a glass bottle, you can expand a gas or whatever, and it will be either contained by the glass bottle or at some point it's going to expand with such pressure that it will break the glass bottle. If the universe is expanding, what is it expanding into? Because rationally, physics would say there's something then on the other thing that it's expanding into. And I think about that at night.
Okay. And we'll leave it at that. By the way, I don't know if you saw me. I've been writing, so I may be one of the only interviewers in American history who takes notes while he's interviewing somebody. So I've already got a whole bunch of things for our next thing. One of them is UFOs. We're not going to touch that now. It kind of anyway. Going back to Born Posthumous, just to kind of segue back. Um, uh, it sounds, listening earlier, that you made the book somewhat, not somewhat, but to be dimensional, and you described part of that. Uh, can you just kind of go over and restructure what some of those dimensions are, uh, if that's a valid question?
Sure, it's um part of it is within the structure, but an aspect, one of the things in writing is a technique is can become allegorical, right? So you take something like George Orwell's Animal Farm, right? It's a story about animals, but really it's about Russia and Stalin and things of that nature. Alice in Wonderland is the same type of thing. It's a story, but the message is different. The Old Testament is a similar type of thing. There's a basic story, but then there's other layers on top of that that have other interpretations and so on by design. There are aspects within Born Posthumous that have this then allegorical nature, that there is a story, but then there is a deeper message or understanding. A lot of it is to let somebody discover those things. But it's also then within that to assist within that, there's that the aspects of that human life juxtaposed to the AI life and how what those might mean to the to an identity of somebody, to what it means against consciousness. There is within Greek mythology something known as the ship of Theseus. If you're aware of that, there's in the book it starts out that somebody is watching a YouTube video just to kind of have some numb moments. And he's watching this video, and it is about this person that's been given an award by their local township for being as a road sweeper for using the same sweep broom for the last 17 years. And he happily declares, wonderful award for using the same broom for 17 years, and he's only had to replace the head 14 times and the handle 9 times. So if it says new handle and new head, is it the same broom? The ship of Theseus is a warship built with wood, sails, everything. It goes out to fight battles, serves some damage, comes back, gets fixed. Over a period of time, every single plank on that ship has been replaced. Is it the same ship? This gets into that identity aspect we were talking about earlier.
Mm-hmm.
So the book then explores a whole series of philosophical issues that add an additional dimension to that storytelling on what it is. And it leads the reader through these various aspects within that.
Okay. Okay. Last question, because we could go on for hours, but we're going to come back. If you want to come back, we'll come back. Um, and I like this question because I like this question for personal reasons I won't go into now, but you provide a critique of corporate ethics and stuff, uh, uh, reviewing the idea that risk is the price we pay, and we are forced to accept for progress. Risk is the price we are forced to accept for progress. So tell me more about that and how you feel about that. Uh, the critique of corporate ethics. We talked about that before we went on air. Uh, um, um, and I almost know the answer, but maybe share that.
So if you look at most major corporations, and I'll isolate it to, let's say, they're publicly traded corporations. So people can buy and share cells in these companies. So it's not just limited to 30 or 100 or just on the Dow Jones, but NASDAQ and everything else. Major entities in the US and elsewhere around the world say apply certain code of conduct to things. How this translates into all organizations have to place shareholder importance number one. Invariably, what it becomes then is for an organization, a commercial organization, it is shareholder, customer, employee. With shareholder being number one. In the US and most countries, publicly traded companies need to produce a fiscal report every 90 days, every quarter. You therefore can't take a long-term view that says we're going to be switching how we do things as a company and we see some upside in 3 years' time, but we're not going to be competitive in the next year or 18 months. And so therefore we'll take a hit, share price to go down. The SEC won't allow you to do things like that because you've got to preserve that shareholder, that you can't do anything overtly. What this does is it means all organizations work on the fact that this quarter is the most important quarter in their life. Everything that they're doing is to make sure cash flow, revenue, profit, whatever is golden this quarter. That directs near-term thinking, short-term thinking. Organizations, publicly traded organizations, are not permitted the luxury of having a long-term view. This then means we're moving into the world of tomorrow by literally not being able to allow our corporations to look beyond tomorrow because we
Wow.
have to protect that shareholder value.
Wow. Boy, talk about, and that's historic. That's been around forever, and maybe that's why we have the problems that we have.
There is about 10 years ago, there was a stock market opened up, the long-term stock market, which set up as an auspices by which specifically people were asked to invest in companies not for short-term gains, but that is not how the majority of publicly traded companies are done. And
Wow.
it's certainly in looking at keeping the shareholder whole, because you can't afford, certainly there are some individuals, let's take a Warren Buffett, right? He may buy $2 billion worth of shares in some company. If that company says, great, thanks for investing $2 billion, but we're going to be doing a shift right and doing some other things for the next 3 years because then we think we get long-term growth. But in the meantime, your $2 billion worth of shares have now worth $100,000. People are not going to be happy. People invest for growth, right? For increased value, not to take a hit. And this protection of shareholder value steers the way a lot of companies will operate, and it incentivizes short-term thinking.
Wow. Wow. Oh, we could, boy, you know what? This is going to be, we got to finish this question, not now. I got so many little addendums to this. This will be next. I'm writing next time. We have to finish that. We can talk about that. I've had long-standing things, and I've written essays. I've written essays which may sound on the surface has nothing to do with this, but in fact, it does. I've written essays about organized crime, and my favorite movie, The Godfather, and I also looked at the corporate world. Interesting, interesting. We'll talk about that. Not now. We'll talk about that. Well, uh, we finished this segment, uh, um, and this has been great. And borrowing a line from one of my favorite movies, Norma Ray. At the end of Norma Ray, Ron Liebman, the actor, says to Sally Field, the actress, "What we've had has been sumptuous." So this has been a sumptuous interview, and I'm so glad we talked on the street. That was synchronistic. A minute here, a minute there. I'm gone, you're gone, and that's just the way the world is. Uh, we can talk about that too at a later date. So, Fitch, here for inviting you to come back. We'll talk about that when we go off air. We've got stuff to finish. This has been great, reminding everybody, born posthumous, fascinating, fascinating, fascinating. And we'll continue to touch on that. The topics are very much alive and well. And I didn't even, I did print out just to give people an idea of your depth and breadth, the flat tire. And you have a series, Esteban
Yes.
book series. So I'm just reminding our viewers about that as well. Again, thank you, thank you, thank you.
You're very welcome. And, in life, I think in general, you gauge life by the moments you have. And I want to thank you for allowing me to be on your podcast to have a moment for myself in my life. So thank you.
Thank you. Perfect. Nice way to finish. Thank you so much. Don't leave. I'm just going to stop recording, and we'll continue doing a wrap. Thank you, Fish.
Thank you.